Welcome. It is now 12 o'clock, and so we will begin our presentation. I'd like to thank you for taking the time and giving your attention to learning a bit more about the Central Minnesota Arts Board's Teaching Artist Roster Program. CMAB is one of Minnesota's 11 regional arts councils. We cover the counties of Benton, Sherburne, Stearns, and Wright. And our mission is on the screen in front of you. My name is Heather Allen. I'm the program officer at the Central Minnesota Arts Board. It's my job to develop and implement all 11 of the grant programs that we offer here at CMAB. It's also my job to help artists and creatives connect their creative visions and aspirations to funding sources and other support that can help them do more creative things in their community. I'm also one of the co-facilitators for the Teaching Artist Roster Program. In addition to my work in arts administration, I've worked for almost 16 years as a teaching artist, working with students aged 4 all the way up to 87. If at any point during the presentation you have issues with audio or visual, feel free to type those into the chat box and we'll see what we can do to get you technical assistance. The Teaching Artist Roster Program is a unique program for the Central Minnesota Arts Board. It is essentially a regional training program designed to build and strengthen skills that successful teaching artists use in the ways that they engage communities through the arts. The Central Minnesota Arts Board receives the funds that we grant out from 2 primary sources. We receive 2 different appropriations from the Minnesota State through the Minnesota State Arts Board. We receive a general fund appropriation, which has been in law for probably, I misspoke, it's not been in law, but it has been in existence for all 40 years that the Regional Arts Council system has been around. And then in 2008, with the passage of the Legacy Amendment, we added a significant amount of funding through a pool of funds created by the voters of Minnesota as they chose to increase their sales tax by 0.3% in order to put money towards clean water, parks and trails, and arts and cultural heritage. The Central Minnesota Arts Board also receives a grant from the McKnight Foundation, which they ask us to invest specifically into individual artists. The Teaching Artist Roster Program is funded by the McKnight Foundation. This program began as an idea in 2011, as many successful programs and initiatives do. And it started in response to a challenge or a problem that was noticed by regional arts administrators, which was a decline in the number of artist residencies that were being funded by the Central Minnesota Arts Board and offered in schools and community settings. The pilot program started in 2011. In 2016, it transitioned to a biannual program, meaning it would happen every other year. The program is responsive and small. We usually take a small cohort of artists, and as such, there's been a lot of change over the years since the program began. Since it began, it served to greatly increase the number of artist residencies CMAB has been able to fund, as well as creating a dynamic network of local teaching artists. This program provides students with real local examples of artists who work and live in their own communities. It also provides artists with ongoing opportunities to generate income through their art and through teaching and sharing the reasons that they create. This program is simply for artists. The primary requirement is that you have an artistic discipline you're connected to and you have an interest in teaching. You may be somebody with significant teaching experience, or you may be somebody with little to no teaching experience, or you may find that you fall somewhere in between. The benefits are sometimes similar for artists with little experience or artists with a lot of experience, but because of the small nature of the program and the cohort model, we believe that there's benefit to artists across the whole spectrum of experience when it comes to teaching. The cohort model acknowledges collective expertise when we discuss challenges and opportunities associated with engaging a community as a teaching artist. It isn't a top-down presentation. Myself and my co-facilitator aren't telling you exactly how to be teaching artists, but we're there to talk about discussions, common challenges that teaching artists face, and ways that we can support one another and learn to do what it is we're interested in doing as artists better within our own discipline. The structure of the program takes place over 7 3-hour training sessions. Historically, those have been held from January through April. It's every other Thursday night, and the training is held in even-numbered fiscal years. We are sitting in fiscal year 2020, so this is a year that the Teaching Artist Roster Program training will be held, and the deadline for that program is in late October. We cover a variety of topics in our training, and as we do work with a small number of program participants, the training, the workshops and the program are able to be somewhat fluid and flexible, so we can really tailor the content to meet the needs and interests of the people who are in the room that particular year. One of the things we talk about in the Teaching Artist Roster Program are outcomes. When a teacher enters into a space to deliver a lesson, one of the things we know is that having an idea of where you're going helps you to be clear on how to get there and what to do on the way. So in order to honor that standard and that value that we have, we've designed some outcomes for the program that myself and my co-facilitator are aiming towards as we take you through lessons and exercises aimed at developing your toolbox as a teaching artist. The first outcome of artists valuing themselves and understanding what they offer as teaching artists relates to our desire to connect artists with their personal motives for making. Art is as different and interesting as the folks who make it, and as such, artists bring different reasons for why they're compelled to create and share their work. We think that taking time to connect to those reasons and to think about what it is about why you teach and how you teach that can benefit other learners makes you a unique and even more valuable asset to a classroom, to a community group, or wherever it is that you choose to share your craft as a teacher. We like to help artists to consider different ways to apply their craft, whether that be a visual artist considering public art for the first time, an artist considering how the work that they do overlaps with science and mathematics, or just simply approaching the way that an experienced teacher may teach or deliver a lesson plan. At the Arts Board and as arts advocates, we are strong supporters of the essential role that arts learning plays in complete education. And as such, we do spend time talking about how to connect in K-12 school settings and how to advocate for the role of arts in deepening learning, embedding lessons, and helping students to appreciate and engage subjects that maybe aren't usually seen as related to the arts. We work to develop a network of teaching artists that can serve as resources, whether it be mentors, peers, friends, people to bounce ideas off of. Personally, as a teaching artist, I find that one of the things that feeds me the most is just the act of talking about teaching with other people who have the same experiences. And we do our best to build that network and create rapports between teaching artists who work in different disciplines and who may not have met one another prior to the training. We talk about some of the mechanics of operating as a teaching artist. Depending on the setting that you're in, you may be doing more or less evaluation. We do ask applicants who apply to our programs to talk about what their outcomes are and how they plan to evaluate the success of those outcomes. And so, as such, we spend some time within the program talking about those very same things. Now, if you're an artist, a teaching artist with more experience, this may be something that you have lots of experience with, and that'll be a time within our cohort sessions that we'll ask you to share your experience with us. And collectively within the room, we usually have some pretty creative ways to attempt naming meaningful outcomes and then finding ways that are creative and engaging that help us to assess the success of those outcomes. We talk about the roles of an artist and teacher and how they relate and intersect. We're not training artists to be K-12 art specialists in this program, and we're not training teachers to be artists. We think that both a teaching artist and a classroom teacher or a program facilitator have vital and necessary roles, and we believe that there are ways that those roles can support one another. And we aim to equip our artists to be able to come into a classroom or come into a collaborative relationship ready to work collaboratively and synergistically to contribute to your success. We talk about real specific, concrete ways to develop lesson plans so that you can write out what you would like to do so that that can be sent in an email, included in a grant application, or edited and revised in a planning session with someone you're collaborating with. There is a specific grant application that is available only to artists who have participated in the Teaching Artist Roster program, and during our time in our 7 sessions, we make sure that you're familiar with that grant application process so that you're ready to attempt writing your own application after you've completed the program. And then we consider other strategies that help to contribute to your success as a teaching artist, whether it's how you set up lessons, how you reach out and network with individuals or organizations where you may want to teach or collaborate, or other things that come up. Perhaps you've been teaching for a long time and you're being challenged by adapting lessons or finding content that is of interest to an audience you want to work with. What do participants gain by taking their time to engage with a program? As I mentioned earlier, one of the primary benefits of this program is the network that's been developed over time as artists have completed the training and then gone on to engage in the region as teaching artists in a variety of capacities. We do make attempts to have gatherings, usually once a year or every 2 years, so artists can meet one another and share what they've been up to. We offer opportunities to market and promote work through teaching artist showcases, through an online teaching artist roster page on the Central Minnesota Arts Board website, which we will show you later in this presentation. And then we will also talk about the teaching artist grants that artists have exclusive access to after participating in this program. The Teaching Artist Grant is the program that artists can apply to as individuals to fund work in a school, in a care facility or whatever organization you've chosen to present and share your work through an artist residency. Some examples of things that have happened through that program are murals and multimedia installations in regional schools, integrated experiences where more than one teaching artist have collaborated to offer multidisciplinary experiences that relate to one another, and interdisciplinary artists. We have artists on our roster who really specialize in finding connections between classroom subjects that aren't typically considered art subjects and infusing them with art and finding new ways to engage students and to address curriculum standards. These teaching artist grants can fund arts learning that happens in a whole variety of settings. So the audience that you work with as an independent contractor is really up to you. You may know that you like working with young elementary age and preschool students, and then that is going to be the opportunities and the partnerships that you'll seek out. You may be interested in working as a teaching artist and not have as much experience, in which case you can follow opportunities and learn the audiences that you like best and where you fit. There isn't one specific way to approach the work of being a teaching artist, and we try to offer lots of different examples of ways to engage, and we always try to encourage you to focus on where it is that your interests lie and your passions. I mentioned in the earlier slide opportunities that are available to artists who have participated in the Teaching Artist program and then create a profile on the CMAB Teaching Artist roster. Those have some specific shapes, which are listed on the screen in front of you, but those things look like a specific teaching artist showcase that's often held in St. Cloud but has been moved to other places in the region in the past. There are sometimes scholarships available for local or state continuing education opportunities that can further develop your skills to offer artist residencies. And then there are often opportunities to teach or attend an annual art camp for artists and educators, which is held at the Paramount Center for the Arts in St. Cloud. And we share these things with you also to point out that the program isn't over in 7 sessions. You participate and you're joining a network which will continue to support you, continue to offer you opportunities to promote your work, should you choose to engage. There isn't an expectation that artists will teach or attend arts camp or participate in an artist showcase, but as we want to offer you lots of ways to support and promote your work, we do try to keep you in the loop about those opportunities. So now let's take a moment to go to the CMAB website, take a look at the teaching artist roster that artists who have completed the program are able to create a profile on, and we'll look on our website at the online application process and how all that works. You should see the home page for the CMAB website. Across the top of the page, we have a number of different options we can choose, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the Teaching Artist Roster program. We're going to look at the Teaching Artist roster, which lists the profiles of artists who have previously completed the roster program and who are eligible to apply for those teaching artist grants. The Teaching Artist Roster is a marketing tool that we offer to artists in order to promote their work and share what it is that they do and what drives them to share their creativity and their art form. The CMAB doesn't actively connect you as an artist on the roster with teaching opportunities. You aren't guaranteed a certain amount of work. We don't cold call or try to make connections for you. However, this page can be useful if you are cold calling somebody you haven't ever had a connection with, but maybe works at an organization you're really interested in engaging. This gives you a place online to direct folks to say, hey, I've been through this training program. I have a profile on the Teaching Artist Roster for the Central Minnesota Arts Board, and you can check out my work here. It also is a way for organizations who may be interested in bringing in an artist to find you without having met you in person somewhere before, or without knowing exactly what it is that they're interested in, but to give them an opportunity to see some artists and what it is they're looking to share in the communities. So the page contains these little thumbnails and profiles, and then if we click on an individual profile, it takes us into a bit more information about that artist. Now, as I mentioned, because this is a resource to you as an independent contractor, you have the opportunity to put contact information on that page so that individuals or organizations can contact you directly. You can list examples of work that you've done. It's helpful to have some nice pictures to get people excited. And then maybe you have specific themes or specific projects that you offer, and those can be listed on this page as well. Now let's take a look at how to apply to participate in the Teaching Artist Roster program. On every page of the CMAB website, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little blue button that says Manage Grants. That will take you into the Central Minnesota Arts Board grant portal login. If you haven't been an applicant or created an account with us before, you'll need to click this little gray button here that says Create a New Account. That will take you to a page that will ask you for some information. The process to create a profile for an organization and an individual is the same, so there may be some things like organization name that might seem strange at first, but if you just read, if you're an individual, then you just put in your last name there. So you'll fill out a little bit of information, create your account, and then you'll be able to log in. So let's do that now. So when you log in, you should see a page that looks like this. This is the applicant dashboard. It contains and catalogs information from your entire history as a grant applicant and grant recipient with the Central Minnesota Arts Board. Now, if you're looking to find a program to apply to, you're going to click on this button at the top that says Apply. And as you scroll, you'll see all of the programs that are available for individuals to apply to. As we scroll down, we see here this page that says Teaching Artist Roster Program. In the corner of all of these boxes, there's a little blue button that says Apply. You can read a program summary that gives you an overview of the program, lets you know who's eligible to apply. And let's see what that application looks like. All of the questions for the application are contained in the same document. To apply for this program, the one thing you'll need to have prepared in advance would be work samples. So if you are a visual artist, you can show us up to 5 samples of your work. That doesn't mean only 5 images. You may have 3-dimensional work that you want to show multiple views of. You may have large-scale paintings that you want to include detail images of, fiber work that you want to have detail images of, things like that. If you are a literary artist, you have up to 10 pages of writing you may submit. And if you're a performing artist or musician, you can submit up to 7 minutes of audio or video. Aside from having that information prepared, you should be prepared to answer the following questions. We'd like to know why you're interested in participating in the Teaching Artist Roster program, and I'll tell you, there isn't a right or wrong answer. As I've mentioned, this program is small, and because it's small, the facilitators are able to design a really personalized program. So we're really looking to find out why it is you're interested in engaging so that we can build a training that's really personal and useful and valuable to you. We want to know about your artistic training and experience. Sometimes this takes the form of in some grant applications, you may just see a resume upload, but because we're not looking for artists who necessarily have developed or even formatted resume, we're just asking you to tell us about your training and experience. That could be leading art projects in Vacation Bible School over the summer. It could be things like homeschooling your kids and teaching art projects, or it could be 35 years as a K-12 art specialist in a school or community setting. Again, we're looking for you to just tell us where you're at. This isn't a there isn't a magical amount of experience we're looking for or specific information that will impact your score in one direction or another, but we want to really get a gauge for where you are in your growth and your experience, which again just helps us to design a process that can really benefit you personally. We ask you for an artist statement. In short, an artist statement lets reviewers know who you are, what you do, and why you do it. That can look like all sorts of things. It's better for an artist statement to be on the short side than very, very long. And this is something that's very personal. It could also include information about techniques that you employ or motives or themes that inform the kind of work you do, especially if those things aren't immediately apparent when you view, when somebody views or reads your work. I mentioned the work samples. As this application is an online application, you'll have to upload work samples. At CMAB, we have a wonderful and very capable media specialist. And so if you have trouble formatting work samples or getting them into the upload in the application, I encourage you to call the CMAB office and ask to talk to Melissa, our media specialist, and she can help you get all of that in the shape you need it in order to be able to submit. If you don't have a work sample you wish to upload, you also have the option to include an audio or video website. Maybe you have a video on YouTube or something like that. There is an option to include supporting materials. If you're an experienced teaching artist, you may have some examples of brochures or business cards or other marketing materials that you've used in the past. If you're a musician and you'd like to include music scores to accompany a recording, those are all options. But this supporting material section is optional, and I would encourage you only to consider using it if you feel that there's some additional information that's really important to include in the application. The next portion of the application looks to get information about the other criteria that is evaluated, the first being artistic merit and quality, which we just discussed, and then reviewers will consider applicant ability. So are you able to engage with the program in a way that we think is necessary in order to lead to a successful outcome? And those criteria statements are listed in numbers 1, 2, 3 underneath the phrase evaluators use the following criteria when reviewing the application. And those are the exact same statements that reviewers are looking at when they score your application to determine who we invite to join us in the program. We list the specific training dates for the sessions. You can check your calendar now. If you know you have 2 or 3 conflicts for sure those nights, I would encourage you to contact me at the CMAB office so that we can discuss your interest in the program and accommodations, and that may look something like considering different dates in the future. If we had enough artists with interest who had major schedule conflicts, we could consider changing those dates. The more likely scenario would be looking at more accessible times or differently accessible times for future trainings. We ask you very explicitly if you're able to attend those training dates. We do understand as a training progresses that life happens, and missing one session for an unforeseen conflict or sickness isn't going to lead to you being expelled from the program, but we do want you to apply at least planning to be available for those dates. And we ask about your teaching experience. So above we asked about your artistic training, how you learned to do what it is you do, whether you're self-taught or learned by teaching others. And then we ask another similar question, but this is really specific to the teaching experience you have. Now that could be in subject areas that aren't the arts, because we believe that pedagogy, the process of teaching or the study of teaching, is something that can translate across disciplines. Again, this isn't something where we're looking for you to convince us to ask to select your application for the process for the program. We just really want to have a good understanding of what sorts of experience the people are bringing into that room. And then we ask you to think about a technique, a genre, a process, or a medium that you're interested in focusing on during the program. You may be a multidisciplinary artist, and so you may be focusing on many things as you plan lessons and consider teaching. We're not asking you to pick one thing and then forsake all other interests, but we just want you thinking about something specific that you may want to learn more about, address some challenges, etc., etc. The next section, we ask you to make just a real general lesson plan outline. So if you're somebody who hasn't done a lot of teaching, this may be a new activity to you, and we've done our best to really break it down. This will, for those who are accepted into the program, this will become something that you're able to work on throughout the time that we spend together, developing that lesson plan, considering ways to change it or amend it. So we start with just asking a description of activities. Some artists come into classrooms and do a demonstration and teach students a specific technique. Some artists are really focused on creative concepts like how do artists get their ideas? How do artists solve problems? How do artists get past creative blocks? And some artists, like I mentioned, are more specifically focused on technique. How do we do this dance? How do we play this song? All of those things are fine. We ask you to consider what that would look like for you. If this is a new activity to you, take a shot at it and guess at something that you might want to teach or share with students. We ask you to consider who it is that you would deliver this lesson to. Again, this is a hypothetical series of questions that we're putting to you in an application, so you're able to choose who is your ideal group for the particular lesson that you've described. Teachers have to plan. We don't have unlimited time with students in almost any situation, so in order to plan successfully, we ask you to consider how long this class or workshop might be. We want to know how you would consider materials. What are the things that students will need for that session? And those 4 questions make up a real basic lesson plan, just for us to get an idea of what your experience is with lesson planning and what ideas you may have for walking into classrooms or community groups. The final section of the application is something called RAC, which stands for Regional Arts Council Data Information. These are questions we're required to collect by the State Arts Board and the Minnesota Legislature in order to be accountable for the funds that we award within the region. These questions are not part of review. They're not used to determine whether or not you are awarded a place in the program, but they are required in order to submit the application. So you will walk through those questions. When there's a question that requires a code you may not be familiar with, there's a link to those codes right here. You'll see a very long list with some numbers. And as I mentioned, these questions are for data collection. So if you're not certain of exactly which code describes your interest in the arts, just do your best to choose the one that comes closest. If you have any questions as you're filling out that last RAC data section of the application, always feel free to call the CMAB office or send myself or any other staff at CMAB questions, and we'll do our best to get back to you and get you back on track as fast as we can. Once all of those questions have been completed, we ask you to put your name and the date in an electronic signature, just so that we hear you saying, "I am who I am." And then you click "I agree," and you're able to submit the application. I'll show you right now what happens if you haven't completed all of the required questions. The application won't submit, and you'll get a list of all of the things you need to complete in order to submit. Now, obviously, I have a very long list because I didn't complete any of the application. So after an artist applies to this program by the deadline of October 24th, 2019 at 11:59 p.m., what will happen is we'll schedule interviews with myself, my co-facilitator, and then usually 1 or 2 members of the CMAB director board. And we'll call you in, ideally in person, but if we need to, we'll take a phone meeting, and we'll just talk to you a bit more about your own creative work, why you're interested in teaching, what you may hope to get from the program. Again, this stage is aimed at finding folks who are the right fit for the program, but we also want to learn as much about you as we can so that we can design a program that really is a good fit for you. After those interviews take place, recommendations will be presented to the board, and then I think it's by about mid-December you can expect phone calls letting you know whether you're in the program. Now, if we fast forward to completing the program, having a profile on the teaching artist roster, then the specific benefit, the specific financial benefit available to you as an artist on the CMAB teaching artist roster is something called a teaching artist grant. I'll just give it a minute while my computer's catching up. Each of our grant programs has a landing page where you can see a summary of the program. You can get quick information about who's eligible to apply. For this program, it's only individuals who are on that teaching artist roster, and the only way to get on that roster is to participate in the program. And then as for any program, including the teaching artist roster program, you can click on a link to view the guidelines. This is a document that you can print that contains all of the eligibility information about the program, and then also those application questions. These are different questions because this is for the Teaching Artist Grant, not the Teaching Artist Roster program. But the guidelines for any program have the same questions that you'll see appear in the actual online application. Teaching Artist Grants offer an individual up to $1,800 to cover their costs and to cover materials to lead any sort of arts learning experience. Those grants are still competitive. You do still have to apply to the board and be scored and awarded, but it is a benefit that's exclusively eligible to that small pool of artists who are now on the Teaching Artist roster. Artists who are applying for and receiving Teaching Artist Grants can receive up to $5,400 within any given CMAB fiscal year through the Teaching Artist Grant program. So that amounts to essentially 3 of these $1,800 grants if you're requesting the full amount and you're awarded. So that means this isn't a full-time job available through this particular program, but as artists who often cultivate multiple income streams in order to be successful and to earn their living, this provides another avenue to make your living as a creative, sharing the work that you do with audiences you'd like to work with. Real quickly, I'll show you just where the guidelines for the Teaching Artist Roster program itself are. Under grants, we have opportunities for artists, and then we're going to click on the Teaching Artist Roster program at the bottom. And then here we have a landing page with an overview of the program, which we've been talking about during today's session. Information about who can apply. A link to the guidelines, which is that document with all of the eligibility information and then the application questions themselves. And then we could click on this link and that will bring us to that grant portal where you may need to create an account if you haven't applied to us before, or where you would log in if you wanted to just get a start on your Teaching Artist Roster program application. I will mention a couple other things about the program, and then we'll return for questions. The grant applications for the Central Minnesota Arts Board are housed in an online application system. However, it isn't the only way a person can apply. We know that there are a whole variety of reasons that an online application process may not be terribly accessible for an individual, and we are happy to make paper applications available or to assist applicants in navigating that online system. So if there is a situation where a paper application is a better fit for you, or you'd like some help working through that online application, we encourage you just to call the CMAB office or to send an email or to stop in and visit us in Foley, Minnesota, and we are really eager and ready to assist you to make sure that you're able to submit an application that you feel good about in a format that works for you. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have about the program. Another resource that I will offer to you if you're an artist who's considering applying to this program and may have more questions or may want to talk about how your specific work may be a fit for this kind of program, I would encourage you to give me a call. The number at the Central Minnesota Arts Board office is 320-968-4290, and I am extension 2. Again, my name is Heather Allen. I'm the program officer here at CMAB, and I am happy to have conversations with artists who maybe you haven't decided if you would like to apply. Maybe you're not sure that what you do is a good fit. Maybe you're concerned about a lack of experience, or maybe you have a lot of experience and you don't know what you might stand to gain from the program. Sometimes those things are best worked out in conversation. And as we have a couple of weeks before that program deadline, I would encourage you to contact me if you have questions of that sort. That concludes the content of the presentation we have for you today. I'm going to stay in the meeting for a bit longer, and I would encourage you, if you have questions, to type them into the chat box. All of the attendees in the meeting can see that chat box, so we can read those questions together, and then I will answer them just over the audio within the meeting. As we leave a little pause for questions, if there are any, I'll just end with a thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit more about this program. We're excited to engage more regional artists. We want to meet you. We want to know about your work, and I bet we're going to encourage you to apply. Thanks again for your time.